My name is Diana Donnarumma and I'm from Buffalo, New York. I am 26 years old and I am the founder of Chronically Fit. So I started on feeds around 5 years ago. When I was young, I was stung by a tick or bitten by a tick, and I had Lyme disease. And I went undiagnosed with Lyme disease for 14 years. By the time they figured out what it was, I had already formed various autoimmune diseases, heart problems, neurological problems, and GI problems. My life wasn't looking up at that point, and we thought maybe I wouldn't make it. But I'm here today telling you that story. It was about 5 years ago when my GI issues really started. One day I started throwing up and it just did not stop since that day. I thought maybe it was the food poisoning or the stomach flu, but it never stopped. The vomiting actually got so bad that I popped a lung and I was sent to spend a month in the ICU. After that, my doctor would not let me return to work, and the years I spent working hard in school and internships and trying to place myself above everyone else was just kind of seeming to fall right out of my hands, and life wasn't ending the way I intended it. And my doctor said I could not go back to work. So I had to give up my apartment. The dog I had in Miami I was able to bring back, but in the job that I loved. After that happened, I moved back home, was admitted into a local hospital, and they said I wouldn't make it unless I would be transferred to Cleveland Clinic by ambulance. So I went to Cleveland Clinic, and they initially thought I just had gastroparesis. However, later they discovered my whole GI tract had no motility and was completely paralyzed, and it had no ability to perform peristalsis, which is moving the food down the GI tract. I was throwing up about 40 times a day. I had no quality of life. I was going unresponsive. I was having syncopal convulsions. I was deteriorating quickly, and it seemed that no one could provide the answers I needed, and no one could do surgeries that would help me get better. And after that, they determined that I needed to be listed for a multi-organ transplant. After I went through an evaluation process, I was listed at both Georgetown in Washington, D.C. and Mount Sinai in New York City. I felt extremely comfortable with both teams, but it was basically a race to the organs. Whatever center could get my organ first, that's where I would end up. A week after I was placed on the list at Georgetown, I got my call. And the whole waiting period was an extremely stressful process because you don't know if you're going to get the call 5 minutes from now or 5 months from now or 5 years from now. It's just really all up in the air, and it's terrifying, and you're living out of a suitcase. And the first week I didn't sleep because I was too terrified that I was going to miss the phone call, them saying they had my organs. I thought I was going to sleep through it. So I prayed, and I tried to give my stress and anxiety off to God, and as soon as I did that, I received a call that they found my perfect match. I went numb when they called. It was around 9 p.m. and I was on the couch watching a movie with a friend. It was a cold October night, and the phone rang. It was around 9:15, and a voice on the other end said, "Diana," and I said, "Yeah." They said, "Do you think you could make it to Washington, D.C. tonight?" I go, "What?" They go, "Diana, we found your perfect match." And I went completely numb. I didn't know whether to scream or cry, or I just went completely numb. I froze in the moment, and then all I could say was the word mom. So I'm saying, "Mom, Mom," and the person on the other end's like, "Diana, will you be able to make it?" And I said, "I'm gonna call this nonprofit agency that flies children to get medical care in other cities to take me." And the pilot of that said, had it been the difference of 15 minutes, he would not have been able to fly me for my transplant, because they said that he was going to have drinks with his wife that night. So the difference of 15 minutes could have been getting my organs or not, and it just seemed that God was aligning the stars for me. By the time we got to Georgetown, we got there and the team was so impressed. They said, we've never had someone enter this flawlessly from out of state, because I was living in Buffalo, New York. And they said, the team hasn't even left to get your organs yet. I go, what are they waiting for? I'm ready. So the next morning, my father was able to get into Georgetown, as well as my brother, which was very important for me, considering I didn't know if I would make it, and 1 in 3 patients don't live past the first year. So having them there with me before I went into surgery meant the world to me. And the surgery went successfully. I was brought up to the OR, or after I went into the OR, I was brought up to the ICU, still intubated for 2 days, and then they extubated me and put me on the main floor. In total, before I could go home after the surgery for the first time was 2 months post-transplant. After 2 months, I was discharged, and I was readmitted 2 days later. So it took about 10 months for the doctors to feel comfortable enough to send me back home. I was still having a lot of problems after transplant. I was still throwing up 40 times a day. My core was in so much pain. I was really suffering due to the medication and blood levels. And it wasn't until they removed my stomach, went back in and removed my stomach, that I started to get better. So in total, after 11 months, that's when I finally started to see improvements. And ever since then, my life has gone so much better. I still do have hard days, I'm not going to lie about that, but compared to where I was before, not knowing if I was going to wake up in the ER, collapse, or have a seizure, I feel very blessed that all I have to do now is take an anti-rejection med. It's a little bit, they say you trade one problem for another. That's a problem I don't mind. But because of all of this, I was allowed to use my patient knowledge and product knowledge to form a company called Chronically Fit. And basically, I started this company because I felt very awful about myself and my body image after I was put on TPN. Like I said, I spent 5 years unable to eat, so it's not like something I could go without or I could leave the house without. And I realized how much this affected my psyches, and I knew that I needed to find something that would work for me. I searched the internet, and the only options that were available were from infusion healthcare companies who had inferior products, an ugly design, they were cheaply made, and they charged 4 times the price because it had the word medical in it. I was able to create a superior product using my own patient knowledge and the feedback of others to create something that was beautiful looking, that was modern, sleek, fashionable, and allowed people to live their best lives while they still can. It gave women confidence. There was one mother who actually told me that she was so embarrassed that she wasn't able to participate in her children's lives. And the day she got my backpack and she went and picked up her children from the first time of school, from school ever. And how do you react to that? It just made me so happy inside, and it's that drive that allows me to help other people on tube feeds and TPN here today. My name is Diana. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope you thrive in life.